What is happening, everybody? All right. Fellow Max, figured I'd do a late night edition of Moparchat with you guys. Let everybody start getting the notifications that I'm up and running. No, I just figured I'd do a little bit of a late night deal. You know, now that the kids are all tucked into bed and everybody's kind of sitting around being bored. On my fellow car guys, looking at all the internets, checking out all the car porn, figured I would jump on here and just say what is happening to all my fellow Mopar files. So, one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about in terms of, why one of the videos that I've actually had a hard time putting together, and it's kind of funny throughout this whole process of putting these videos together, there's some that just kind of come together and, obviously there's not a whole lot of editing involved with any of my stuff. I mean, typically it's just us hanging out. LSX, Jimmy, what's up, my boy? Oh, when's that car going to be ready, man? Come on. Track day event's coming up. She's got to make her big debut, man. Shoot. Can't wait to see that one go down the track. Symphonics, what's up, man? How you doing? So Vince, damn, in big. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I need all the help I can get. Thank you very much. And the funds will go to good use, believe me. Yeah, that drive shaft pretty much stung. For you guys that don't know, I got a Wiles drive shaft on the way for the Hellcat, mainly because it's more of a peace of mind thing. And really with my Hellcat, I'm looking more into durability mods, cooling mods, things like that. I'm kind of taking the minimalist approach with that car primarily because really I want to see how much I can get out of that stock car. So let me just put it to you guys like this. When the Hellcat first came out, it was the first car to really embody that 10-second quarter mile, it was like, it had almost like the Demon marketing, but it was super Demon light. It was before, there was ever going to be a Demon, obviously. And, here it was, they were really touting that car on the drag strip as a 10-second car from the factory. I want to see how much I can improve upon that with the stock tunes, stock cats and everything, but the durability parts have got to be there. So the drive shaft is coming thanks to all of you guys. Soon after that will probably be lower trailing arms, and it's already got a diff brace on it, thanks to my buddy Ray with that Demon. And it's also going to possibly get half shafts and maybe a 309 gear. We'll see if that actually helps the process out a little bit. But that's kind of the plan for that car. Oh, hang on. We got some, but thank you very much, Vince. I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart, man. Thank you so much. LXX Jimmy let me know his parts are arriving Tuesday. Man, we got 6 weeks, brother. Come on. Let's make it happen. Redneck Raymond, I like that. You own a Hellcat and SRT? No, I don't own the SRT anymore, although I am still very much involved with anything and everything 392 related. So, Mopar no car, family cruising. Yeah, heard about that, man. Not cool. Really bummed out for that guy. Hope everything goes well for that dude. Mark Flamer, no DSS drive shaft. No DSS drive shaft because I've seen plenty of them in person. Some guys have had really good luck with them, and in other cases they haven't done so well. I don't know if it's a manufacturing thing, the guy putting it together, I don't know, but Wiles is actually really killer setup for has really a killer setup for their drive shaft. So going to give them a shot. Or a shot. I've already given them a shout, and I've already given them a lot of money. So, looking forward to getting that drive shaft in. Let's see. Yep, Redneck Raymond SD1. Yep, did sell the SRT. It's a fucking mosquito, man. Sorry. Let's see. Joe T, A.B. Mason. Hey, Joe T. Let's see, some phonics. Yeah, saying he lives up in New York, haven't driven the car for a month and got 4 to 5 more to wait. Getting separation anxiety. Yeah, no kidding. I know the feeling with that. For sure. Oh, hey, here we go. James Rendon says, hey, this is James from Albuquerque. Love Albuquerque, man. What's up? What's happening? He says he's been asked this question. What do I think about Richard Petty's 426,000 horse engine install for 19 grand? You know, man, I tell you what, I say go for it. I don't see anything really wrong with it. My only thoughts on that, you know, I don't have, you know, specs or anything like that on the engine, but, you know, if you can get 1,000 horsepower for 19 grand, dude, I say jump on that. Just be careful. Be careful with horsepower claims. A lot of times that horsepower number is, let's just say it's going to be a bit optimistic. 1,000 horsepower is actually really hard to come by, especially on anything remotely resembling pump gas. Even E85, it's not impossible. In fact, it's fairly easy to get close to 1,000 horsepower with a stock Hellcat engine and have it live a long time. That Hellcat short block is incredibly robust, but again, that's going to take pulleys, E85, stuff like that. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at, when somebody starts advertising horsepower numbers, kind of gives me the chills a little bit. I'd rather see how the thing performs on a drag strip. King SI asks, what color is my Hellcat? It is Redline Red. And that is part of the reason why the nickname is Revlon, because when I first told my wife what color the car was, she thought I said Revlon Red as opposed to Redline Red. I must have mumbled it. Let's see, what do we got here? LXX Jimmy. Let's ask the real questions. This is what he says. He says, let's ask the real questions. How does family cruising fit in that Viper? I don't know. Viper's tiny, man. Let's see. Tiny, and the pedal placement. If you guys have never driven a Viper, more to the point is how does his legs fit in the footwell? So because the Viper has such a wide trans tunnel, your feet are actually kicked over to your left, basically putting your throttle more or less where a normal brake pedal will be. I've gotten some folks into some pretty hairy situations in the past. King SI, what year Hellcat do I have? I have a 2015. Mopar no car. Yeah, family cruising's in jail. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a pretty well covered subject this evening. Like I say, I feel bad for the guy. You know, what more can I say, man? Anytime somebody has to go through something like that, it's terrible. And it's not just affecting him, guys. It's affecting his family, his kids, all of that. I know there's a lot of fans of that channel, and, you know, they're going to be without a show. So, but I don't know. I hate to say it, I don't really keep up with the dude's channel too much, so I don't know a whole lot about him, but I do know some of what he's done, and, you know, just because, you know, we're all kind of in the community. And so anyway, you know, thoughts and prayers, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Mopar No Car says, or asks, should I buy a fully loaded Scat or a Hellcat? What's better for track and daily use? Man, I gotta tell you, dude. So it depends on what you're talking about, track and or daily use. Depends on how you're going to drive the car. It's actually a little bit debatable. I actually like the 392s just for overall balanced performance on the street. You know, keep in mind, you know, 392 on the street, especially if you've got a drag radial on the back of that thing, is going to be a solid performing car. Give anything pretty much all it can handle and then some on the street. If you've got to enter traffic briskly, which had that happen to me today, as a matter of fact, I mean, a legitimate use of 0 to 60, that actually is a great car because it's not overpowering. and they're fairly robust. I mean, you know, in normal use, they're just fine. So, you know, if it's me, for track and daily use, go with the Hellcat. The only reason why I say go with the Hellcat is because it comes from the factory a bit more robustly put together than the 392 cars. And what I'm mainly referencing here is that HP70 automatic. If you are going to be taking that thing down the track a lot in stock form, it's not going to matter. But if you start to get into the tuning aspect with the 392, and if you really start throwing mods at it, you could possibly get an issue there. I don't know. I wouldn't say 50-50. I'm like 51-49 here. I love the 392s as a daily platform, but the Hellcat would work just fine. And by the way, you do a lot of highway driving, the Hellcat will actually knock down a little better fuel economy than the 392 will. Slime Cuda comes in with AB, love the chats, couple of questions for 392 combo. Well, hopefully I can help. Why does everybody go supercharger instead of turbo? What do I recommend for heads, intake, manifold for mild, medium turbo setup? Thanks. Well, thank you for the question. The reason why they go supercharger is because there's not really, from what I know anyway, a solid, reliable turbo setup for the 392 or for the LX platform in general. I'm sure there are maybe one or two out there. I'm just not familiar with them off the top of my head. Probably going to be a rear mount setup, or it's going to be a very tight, tucked in, small turbo setup. It's based on packaging more than anything else. Superchargers, man, they're kind of a known thing. I mean, they pretty much bolt on the car and you're good to go. My preference would be turbos. Now, you know, if there's a manufacturer out there that's going to put together a kit, would be great. I cannot remember the manufacturer to save my life right now, but one that I've seen that's really cool is it actually mounts right underneath the engine. There's basically a cast manifold that the turbos bolt to that the exhaust runs into. And then from there runs back up to the intercooler and then back into the engine. Real tight. It's the one that I've seen it on is actually on a Gen 5 Camaro. Trick as hell. And looking at the engine compartment from the top, you'd never know that car had turbos on it. And a good small turbo setup that would be put together that way would be probably my suggestion. But again, to answer the question, it's mainly due to packaging more than anything else. And then the next part of that question was, what do I recommend for heads, intake manifold for mild, medium turbo setup? Heads, leave them stock on a 392. They flow plenty. Cam, shoot, man, to be honest with you, stock cam would work great with a set of turbos. But what would work better, obviously, something with a bit more exhaust duration. Realistically, something with, you know, intake center line of about 109.5 to 110, duration at about 220-ish on the intake, about 240-ish on the exhaust. Lobe separation angle of about 114-ish would put you right about where you'd need to be. Lift numbers, lift doesn't really matter at that point, but you'd want to be about 585, 595 on the intake and somewhere around 550 on the exhaust. Joe T asked, do I think the 5-speed auto versus the ZF is a huge difference in pulls? Like you wouldn't believe. Yes, it is. Could the 5-speed be a good enough transmission for racing? Absolutely it can. Guys, keep in mind that NAG1 5-speed has been backing up E55s, and E55s back in the day were making, you know, tuned with pulleys and everything else, you know, 600-700 horsepower. So, you know, when they're put together the right way, they'll handle plenty of power. And when you're making that kind of power, especially with a, you know, positive displacement supercharger, it doesn't really matter. Now, naturally aspirated, or if you're running with a, you know, with a centrifugal style supercharger, then yeah, you're going to start noticing a big difference between that transmission and the HP70 or HP90. Let's see. Redneck Raymond lets us know he used to own a 2016 Plum Crazy Scat Pack, and now he has a Ram 1500 5.7. He misses his car. Man, I bet. Yeah, that would be something I would miss too, especially if you went from that car to that truck. But I like the Ram trucks too. I mean, You gotta remember, my truck is probably the reason why I went with my car to begin with. Just because I like the whole driving experience. Val West chimes in with Jay Green cam for his 14 RT Challenger 6 manual. Yeah, Jay Green puts together a good cam. Good guy, too. Let's see, Redneck Raymond SD1 saying he's thinking about getting a pedal commander. I've actually used pedal commanders before on BMWs and Mercedes, so yeah, they work pretty well. It's a passive modification. If you guys don't know, pedal commander, basically it intercepts the return signal from the pedal to the ECU and basically tells the ECU that the pedal is further down in its travel than what it really is. So it just basically gives you a little bit better throttle response. It's the same thing as increasing the power pedal command portion of HP tuners, if you guys are used to that. Fast Man says, what's up, bro? What's up, Fast Man? Mark Flamer says, 2 things I'm about to order is MMX NSR NA cam, good cam. Second, my thoughts on Boostain regarding the orange plug stuff. It doesn't hurt the plugs. It's just it's a dye and it gets on the porcelain. Porcelain is, easily colored by, any dyes or anything like that. So don't worry about that. As far as does it work? Yeah, Boostain works fine. The main thing though is if you can data log the vehicle, look for short-term knock retard. If you don't have any knock retard in the tune, then it's not going to do a whole lot of good to run an octane booster. If you do, try running some Boostain or any other additive for increasing octane, or run race gas in it, run actual, from a drum race gas. See if it eliminates that short-term knock retard. Keep in mind though, Hemis and other cars too, but Hemis are quite susceptible to this. Their knock sensors are very aggressive. Just the settings in the tune itself. So make sure I'm not going crazy here. If you are going to be running long tubes on the car, by the way, those settings will have to be altered significantly. You'll want to alter those settings in the tune just to keep the car or truck from going into false knock. Hemis are bad about that. So at least the NA stuff is. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But yeah, let's hear your results. That NA grind cam is actually pretty good. LXX Jimmy says, let me know when the daily truck wants to catch a lane. You got that. No problem. The 5.0 just put it on a 3.5 Eco Raptor from a dig and a roll tonight. Bring on the Hemi. Can't wait to. I think that'd be a fun one. The 5.0 Ford 5.0 pickups are fast, man. I mean, don't let anybody fool you. Those things do run. All right. Let's see. And that's in stock form, by the way. You don't even have to touch those trucks. Let's see. Hayden Ells checks in with, what's up, B. Mason? What's up, Hayden? What would be your custom grind cam choice for a 5.7 Hemi and a 6.4? Oh, and 6.4. It kind of went crazy here. And set up full bolt-ons. You preach. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, depends on what you're going for. Camshafts, if you're going for outright performance, you're going to want something that, quite frankly, doesn't lope. You're going to want something that is a bit more mild, something that's going to give you more power out of the hole. You're going to sacrifice just a little bit of power on the big end, but keep in mind your limitations are your intake manifolds, guys. It's the way it's always going to be. Yes, you can port them. Yes, you can do work to the runners. You can do a lot of stuff, but they do have their limitations. So, don't go crazy with the camshaft. And that goes for 5.7s or 6.4s. I don't like seeing duration numbers if you're asking for specifics here. I don't like seeing duration numbers on the 5.7s more than about 220-ish. And I don't like seeing duration numbers on the 5.7s any more than about 224. So, and it also, by the way, has a lot to do with the shape of the lobe itself. Modern lobes are not symmetrical. And my lobes are not at all symmetrical in terms of how the lobe looks. So instead of being like, imagine, you know, a pyramid, you know, normally a cam's a lobe, but let's just go with a pyramid, it makes it easier. If this side over here is the side that is lifting that, or, you know, pressing that lifter up, you know, that lobe shape is going to be like this. It's going to ramp that thing up and it's going to set it down more softly. And that's to, you know, differing angles. So even the cam lobe profile starts to make a big difference there. A more symmetrical lobe is an older school lobe. Doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just that with Hemis, because of the way that the flow dynamics work within that cylinder head, your cam events, the faster and for a shorter duration that you can make them happen, the better that engine's going to respond, especially when you're dealing with a heavy car like a Challenger or a Charger. Kind of has its own unique set of challenges that it throws at you. Let's see. TU says, I'm smart for not keeping up with his channel. He's talking about family cruising. You're not missing out on anything. Man, I'll tell you what, I concur. I'll leave it at that. Sammy Jackson checks in. Yo, Mason, what's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for checking in. It says he missed the last live when I talked about the differences in header tube diameters. Could I possibly touch on it again? Absolutely. So the deal with header tube diameter, it's more than just a diameter. It's actually a diameter versus how long that tube is. And if let's say you're comparing headers and they all have the same, what's the best way I can put this? The same design, the same shape, the same everything. For a header with a smaller diameter, it will typically, for the same length of pipe, generate more torque down low and under partial throttle conditions, while sacrificing some amount of power up top, depending on camshaft profiles and RPM requirements of that particular engine, and also airflow requirements of that engine. Sorry, I got some shit in my nose that's starting to mess. And conversely, for a specific given length of tubing, a larger diameter primary, larger diameter pipe, is going to yield better power through the mid-range and in the higher RPM range, while sacrificing some power under partial throttle and at lower RPM. So, that being stated, think of it like this. And we're only going to talk about like for like lengths of tube, because when you start talking about shorter, longer, and all of that, that's where things get weird. So let me just talk about long tubes now for just a second, and then I'll get into this part of it, because this is like, I could give a class on this that would last a week. So I'm going to try to, boil this down. Where guys get it wrong is they will pick a header with too large of a diameter that will sacrifice power under partial throttle conditions. And the engine itself, in most cases, won't be able to rev high enough to take advantage of the actual scavenging effect that the larger diameter would give it if it just could get to that airflow requirement. And really, it's all about requirements of the engine in terms of actual airflow, but then you get into basically pulse frequency, and that's the actual puff of exhaust as it's running through the exhaust, and then the next one running right behind it. Obviously, all of that gets into, it just gets real convoluted real quickly, because it's literally every piece has to come together and mesh. Not one portion of it's more important. So I'm probably getting a little bit out of here. Let's see. Oh, so when you're talking about header tube diameters, specifically for the Hemis, you've got 1 3/4 and 1 7/8 are basically the most common. There is a 2-inch option that's available as well. So just understand this: the stock 6.4 and the stock stock Hellcat manifolds are 1 3/4 inch short tube. So basically, what that means is you've got a smaller diameter, but it's only about this long. It's super short. And so because of that, there's really no scavenging that takes place at a specific RPM range, it basically dumps into a 3-inch collector and then into the catalytic converter and then down the pipe. Or if you don't have cats, it's just like a long 3-inch collector. That's not necessarily a bad thing because you get a pressure drop basically instantly. The reason why that's good is the stock cam has a very wide lobe separation angle. And because it has a very wide lobe separation angle, there's not that much overlap. So you need an immediate pressure drop right after that exhaust comes out of the cylinder head. You want it to hit an immediate pressure drop so that it evacuates the cylinder that quickly. If you have a larger camshaft, that's not really doing you a whole lot of justice because there's not a lot of scavenging that's taken place with that particular stock manifold, or in this case, stock shorty header configuration. And there's no tuning of the pulses either. It's just basically, yes, it's a tuned pipe, but it's only that long, and it's that long because that's a packaging issue. So basically, more or less, it works out like this. If you're going to get headers for your Hemi, get a set of 1 7/8 inch headers. They work, they sound good, they work well enough under partial throttle, and if you've got a 5.7, go with the 1 3/4. That's the best ones that work. I can always I can just get nerded out big time when it gets into flow dynamics, but the reality is there's so many different things that come into play. It's really hard to, focus in on just one, but for the most part, that's kind of the 20,000 foot view of it. So Val West asks, what do I think about the green cam, the J green cams? Yeah, they're good. I mean, at this stage of the game, guys, just understand this. I mean, we're pretty deep into these Hemis, especially the VVT engines, and most of the cam specs are starting to look very much alike. I mean, I hate to say it, but the guys that are grinding these cams have figured out pretty early on with these VVT cars that they're the same mentality that goes into putting together a cam for a wedge engine does not hold the same kind of water when you're working with a Hemi. It's a completely different animal with the way that cylinder head flows air and the way that everything works with that engine. Again, without, diving too deep into the nerd end of the pool here, you've got to go, less is more when you're talking about camshafts for the Hemis, because we're talking about a heavy car and we're trying to build power not only off the hit, but also partial throttle response, and partial throttle torque. You can get away with a lot more with an LS because typically, well, number one, it's a wedge head. It's a high swirl head as opposed to a tumble port head, not to mention the fact those cars are typically significantly lighter, and there's more intake manifold choices available, which means you can spin them to a more reasonable high RPM, like 7,200 RPM, 7,500 RPM, stuff like that. And they'll take that all day. Let's see. Sammy Jackson, 3 thumbs up. Mopar No Car says, I got quoted $100 for insurance on a Hellcat, so I'm pretty excited. I'd be pretty damn excited if I got that same quote, man. Jump on that. Let's see. Lightning Blue Meanie says, Yo, B Mason, love your stuff, but I don't own a Mopar. That's too bad. Is this stream Mopar exclusive, or if so, are you planning on talking about badass American cars in general? Actually, for the most part, I talk about everything. It's just Moparchat because that's kind of how it's evolved. Majority of the questions I get are Mopar based, but no, I'll talk about anything. A lot of times Corvettes come up on this. As you guys know, I'm a huge Corvette fan. So yeah, Corvettes will come up, Vipers come up, Camaros, Mustangs, pretty much most of the American stuff will come up. I'll try to talk some of the hot hatch stuff every once in a while because soft spot in my heart for those cars. Trucks are always open on this channel from whatever manufacturer you want. So you got a question, feel free to ask. I enjoy talking about all of it. Let's see. The Sloan asks, have you guys figured out a rental date, track rental date in January? Yes, it is January 12th. And it looks like we are just about filled up. I've got, I think, 2 or 3 slots left, but they're spoken for, but they're not spoken for until I get paid. This son of a bitch got that motherfucker right there. All right. LSX Jimmy says, Arrington and Helion make turbo kits for the Challengers. STS is developing a kit from what he understands. Actually, I'd be real interested in that STS kit, but Helion does make some pretty nice stuff. Love to see how well they perform long-term too, because that would be a definite option and a great option for the 392 guys. Let's see. TU says, can't wait to see Revlon with the one-piece drive shaft and 309 gears. It says, see me launch with confidence will definitely lower that 60 foot, in my opinion. Have you under 1050 on stock power? I am shooting for it. You know, I'd like to see how well it does with the stock gears first. But the 309 gear thing really does intrigue me a little bit, mainly from just a drivability standpoint, just being able to play with it a little bit. And one of my biggest criticisms of the Hellcat has always been that yes, it's fast, it's torquey, it's a fun car, it's a rich driving experience. But to me, it always felt a little bit neutered with the 262 gears. That being said, traction is at a premium with 262 gears in that car, regardless of what tires are on the back of it. So let me get into that real quickly. So we actually took it on a bit of a road trip this past weekend this weekend. And I had to kind of get into traffic from a side street and rolled onto the throttle while I'd actually rolled through a puddle. So it was kind of like getting ready to do a burnout almost. But anyway, rolled through a puddle. I was trying to actually get onto the part of the highway. The car lights up the tires a little bit, so I back out of it. And keep in mind, I got an 18-wheeler coming up on me. Roll out of the throttle, roll back into the throttle. Car lights the tires up again. Roll out of the throttle just a little bit. By this time, it's in third. Roll into the throttle again. Car lights the tires up. Smoke show. Screw it. I got to get going. And that was the story of me trying to enter the freeway with a set of stock gears that were on a little bit of a wet drag radial. So, but no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I would love to see that thing go 1050s, actually with a stock gear, and then see if I could whittle a 40 out of it with a set of 309s. But that's, again, kind of a tall ask, especially with a stock gear. So let's get to that, or with a 309 gear. And the reason for that is I recently did some testing with the car as far as cat overtemp and seeing where the car was going to start to add in cat overtemp, just in terms of, you know, the point of view of actually driving the car on the street and having the car at the track and finding out at what mile an hour under a heavy load it would actually go into cat overtemp. And actually at on the track at about 116 miles an hour, it started going into cat overtemp. And if I put a different gear in the car, it's going to reach that point sooner. So I think with the guys that have been running the 309 gears and not seeing any real improvement with them in a stock car in the quarter mile, that's probably the reason why. I mean, you're going through the gears, you're staying at a high RPM for a longer period of time, which means the cats are getting hotter. You're going into cat overtemp, and it's staying in cat overtemp. And cat overtemp in these cars and the Hellcats, you're not actually pulling any timing. It just goes real rich. Excuse me. So it doesn't go real rich. It's like 10.5, 10.8, but it's a gradual. It'll start to throw fuel at it. Cats will cool off, and then it'll start pulling fuel back, and then it starts seeing them heat up again, so it throws fuel back at it. That's cat overtemp protection in a nutshell, but it does kill power on the big end. So you don't see that going through the 8th mile because cats haven't gotten hot enough yet. But given it enough time, it will. And 309 gears, you're going to be in that RPM for a longer period of time. Goes into cat overtemp earlier, and that's why they slow down a little bit. Or at least they don't perform as well as you would hope. Now, a tune, cat delete, that makes all that problem go away, but that's a tune and a cat delete. And I'm trying to do this with a stock tune and stock pulleys. Let's see. Derek Schweissman says, hey, B. Mason, glad I could finally make it to the live show. Hey, glad you can make it. Says he's always a fan of the content. I do appreciate that. That being said, what are the dangers of replica wheels? I see a lot of people running Hellcat replicas. Haven't seen any issues with them that I know of. The replicas are good if you're doing a bunch of drag racing, street driving, stuff like that. They're actually a pretty robust wheel. I probably wouldn't trust them on a road course, but in normal driving, I mean, potholes, stuff like that, they're not going to affect these wheels. They're actually pretty stout wheels, and Replica's been making wheels for forever. So, yeah, I would say, you know, buy with confidence. I don't think you're going to have any issues. Cody Ruthman asked, would I prefer an 02 Trans Am WS6 or an 06 GTO LS2? Damn, that's pulling at the heartstrings, bro. Go with the WS6 just because it's a WS6. But the 06 GTO, the LS2, is going to offer you a little bit more just in terms of potential because you're running the LS2. But, you know, if you're going to be doing a motor swap, either way, it wouldn't matter. But, man, I'd love a WS6 Trans Am. Those are badass cars. Symphonic says, so it looks like, let's see, so it looks like Ford is finally going to reveal the GT500 in January at the Detroit Auto Show. Yeah, I heard about that. Says he has a feeling a lot of Mustang fan feelings are going to get hurt that day. Man, I tell you something. You know, I'm glad that they're finally going to release something. Here's the problem with the GT500. I want to desperately be excited about that car. I have always been and always will be a huge fan of GT500s. I've had so much fun with those cars. They hold a very unique place in history in that they really didn't have to exist when they were originally developed and released to the public. Guys, you got to remember the GT500, following in the footsteps of the Termi Cobras, they existed at a point in time where Ford didn't have to do that. They did not have to put a supercharger on top of a 5.4 liter and sit it out in the world because it had nothing to compete with, basically. So there were no other pony cars. So yeah, I'll always be a big fan of the GT500. It was like the first real taste of big block torque, positive displacement, bigger engine, bigger car. I mean, it was the Challenger before the Challenger was a Challenger, so to speak. It was the Hellcat far before the Hellcat was the Hellcat. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I want to be intrigued and excited about the GT500. The problem is Ford isn't doing a damn thing to get me excited about it. You know, when you looked at all the hype for the Demon, it was such a fun thing. You know, you had weeks of just anticipation and teaser videos and all this other stuff. And, you know, Ford's coming in like some pompous ass, you know, hot cheerleader type situation where just because they walk in the room, you're supposed to get all worked up. It says Shelby on it. My God, you know, I should stop everything I'm doing and just shut up and listen, right? Doesn't work like that anymore. There's too many awesome alternatives that are out there, especially when you start to consider the price. Now, I haven't seen any pricing on that car. I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to it, to be honest with you, because it's been fake news, really, to be honest with you guys at this point, at least from what I've seen. But it ain't going to be cheap. And unless they've got about 100,000 of these things ready to sell and they're going to price it right, these things are going to be expensive, and guys are going to be paying premiums to get their hands on these cars. That's fine, but without the hype and without something that I can really sit behind and get excited about, I don't know. We'll see. But January will let us know, and I'm sure that it'll be amazing and it'll be great and it'll be everything that everybody could hope for and then some. But for the guys that think that this thing is going to be a demon killer or an, insert whatever car you want killer, guys, it's gonna be fast, it's gonna be good, it's gonna be all of that, and it's just gonna be one of a lot of very fast cars. I just wish they wouldn't hold up the process the way that they're doing. Again, I like the GT350. It's great, but it'll never be the GT500 in my eyes, even for the GT500 from old. Let's see. Derek says, hey, B. Mason, always enjoy your content and appreciate you letting us pick your brain. Man, I love you guys hanging out with me, man. Good to hang out with you. Let's see. Claver Enterprise asks, what's the difference between Diablo Trinity versus HP Tuner on a 2018 392 Charger? Is a trans tune required? The differences are huge. I mean, the Trinity is just a handheld device, and the HP Tuner software is something completely different. I mean, you control a significant amount more parameters with the HP tuners. You actually have to tune the car with the HP tuners. The Trinity will come with a canned tune that you can make different adjustments with on a very limited basis. And he asks, is a trans tune required? No, it's not required, but I would say that if you're spending the money on tuning the thing, get the trans tune. I mean, it's definitely worth the money. Just be careful where you get your tunes from, guys, especially with the 8 speeds. You don't want to kill torque management 100% across the board. You still want some torque management in there to help that transmission shift. I've already proven at the drag strip that killing torque management on the shift doesn't make enough of a difference. In fact, in some cases, it didn't make any difference at all in terms of ET. So keep some torque management in it, but the reality is it's not going to make any real difference. Killing the torque management, but yes, get the trans tune. Let's see. Redneck Raymond asks, B. Mason, did you ever have a problem with your Ram 1500 8-speed not making it? 8-speed, not making it. Oh, wait, we got some punctuation things going on here. Mine to choose what gear also. Should I take it in for the rattle I have during cold startup? Doesn't happen all the time. Oh, no, I never had any problems with the 8-speed in my truck ever. Really, I didn't have any issues with any of the 8-speeds that I've ever had that weren't my own fault. And asking, should you take it in for the rattle that you have during cold startup? Doesn't happen all the time. Yeah, take it in and have them check it out. Make sure it's not something major. It probably isn't. If it goes away that quickly, it's probably just loose manifold bolts. They can get in there and knock that out pretty quickly. If it's something more serious, and by more serious, I mean lifter, then yeah, it's something you're definitely going to want to get taken care of if you're still under warranty. Let's see. Roman Yardo asks, would I recommend a used second gen SRT8 Challenger Auto with the 5-speed or spend the extra for the 2015 and up Challenger Scat Pack Auto? Always get the 8-speed automatic over the NAG 1. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with the NAG 1. I would just challenge you to save the money and get the 8-speed. The 8-speed, the driving experience is far and away different. See, that's a cool looking one. Let's see, Stoilet again. That's pretty cool. Says, what did my Challenger run in stock trim 0 to 60 and quarter? Stock, it ran 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, I believe, and went 1260 at 111 miles an hour. Bone stock tires. Let's see. Hayden L says, I touched up on how MMX ported manifold is not that good in my opinion. Would you be willing to port intakes for some side cash? Man, if I had the time, I would do intakes all day, every day. In fact, I've got one on the bench that I need to get knocked out. Probably after March-ish, I may start doing some more intakes. It just depends on what the demand is and how much time I've got on my hands. The MMX intake is actually pretty good. Peak Speed also does a good job with the intakes. It's just that there's some more work that needs to be done in a couple of key areas on both of those intakes to make them work. God damn it. Fucking mosquitoes, dude. So it was freezing cold here for a little bit, and then it got hot. And then all the mosquitoes, I guess, defrosted, and now it's like freaking that movie Pitch Black where they're all sucking the blood out of my head. I don't know. Anyway, I got a lot of skin on top of my head, man. It looks like a freaking giant ham with ears. Let's see. But anyway, that's the thing with the intakes. I'll probably won't get started back on those for a bit. I've gotten, the new job's eating about 60 to 70 hours a week worth of my life right now. So my man was good. Bad Hemi chimes in with, let's see. Mark Flamer says, that's why he went 1 3/4 with his long tubes on his Scat. Wanted to see what would happen if I stretched my stock 1 3/4 to a long tube. I'll tell you what, as far as the long tubes go on either the 6.4 or the 5.7, really you can't go wrong either way. And keep in mind that if you do watch any of the actual Engine Masters competitions, there's 600 horsepower cars running 1 3/4 inch long tubes, although they are a very calculated and precise, length, because I mean they're on a dyno. They don't have constraints as far as how they're going to route in a vehicle. But yeah, I mean they try to get as much velocity as they possibly can running those things. Let's see. Ben Martin saying these free class sessions are very much appreciated. You're a master. Well, I appreciate that. Feel free to throw me a bone there, buddy. Let's see. Phoenix 98 says, "What's up, guys? What's up, Phoenix?" Joe T asked, "Don't Hellcats have 309s or 262s?" They have 262s from the factory. The Demon has 309s from the factory as well, and your Red Eye can be optioned with 309s just like a Demon. Toby Rama asked, "My thoughts on the Oshawa GM factory closing. What will happen to the 14,000 workers? I've heard Trump and Trudeau are collaborating to counter this." I have no thoughts on that because I have no idea, man. I hate to hear about any factory closing. Damn, that sucks. So get some more information and let us know. Our Zapalak makes just happened to come into my feed. Wanted to say hello, brother. What is up? Call me the professor. He's actually a professor. That's a good friend of mine, Mr. Zapalak. Always good. Man, give me a shout tomorrow. Hope things are going well. Love the fam, man. Everybody said hi. Robbie Kaiser, what's up, Brian? What's up, homie? Let's see. Sherrod Nelson says, I have a supercharger on a 2018 392 using HP tuners on 7 pounds of boost. A2 Speed did the original tune, but now I'm getting a rich Bank 1 and Bank 2. So if you're getting rich on Bank 1 and Bank 2, make sure, number one, you're checking, I'm assuming you've got long tube headers on this thing. Check to make sure that you don't have an exhaust leak. Definitely an issue that we've run into. So yeah, if it's throwing fuel at it, it means it's got oxygen coming in to that exhaust system when it shouldn't be, and so it's going to start throwing fuel at it. That's typically what will happen too. If you see something like that later on down the line, it'll typically happen within about anywhere from a week to, depending on how often you drive the car, up to a month. You can actually have those situations just kind of, or those symptoms start to come up, and the situation basically dictates that it's going to be an exhaust leak somewhere. Let's see. Robbie setting us all straight with the Hellcat. Yes, they do come with a 262. Redneck Raymond says, my girlfriend's a nag one, nag number one. Let's see. See, Mopar No Car says, Night, B. Mason, one more question. Are you going to buy a red eye? No, I am not going to buy a red eye. The reason why I'm not going to buy a red eye is I am real happy with the Hellcat, and I can do just some very slight mods to that Hellcat that will put it well and beyond what a stock red eye would be able to deal with, and that's even just leaving the tune stock alone. So nothing against the red eye, but don't count the Hellcat out. That Lysome supercharger setup from IHI is a very, very efficient set of very different. God, speak, Mason, Christ. Very efficient bit of kit, and it will hold its own just fine against any red eye. Trust me. So Ron is asking, which tuner is good for someone who wants the quick swap between tunes without a laptop? go with the Trinity. I mean, if you've got an email tune and you've got a more of a simple setup in terms of complexity, we're talking like a NA type of a car, head cam, something like that. You can have a couple of custom tunes burned onto that Trinity and just swap back and forth, and it'll be easy for you. Let's see, Mark R says, going to be in the market for a used low mileage Challenger Hellcat over the winter. Have any pointers on what to look for when buying used? First thing to look for is to make sure it doesn't have any bullshit done to it already. So you don't want to buy a car with a bunch of mods, at least from somebody that you don't know. If you know the car, then don't sweat it. But again, buyer beware. You always want to buy a car that is as stock as possible. The second thing that you want to look for is look for any signs that there have been any wrecks or anything like that. So you're going to want to look at the core support where the radiator basically bolts onto the car. Look at the inner fender wells. Look around pop the trunk. Look around the trunk. Make sure that there isn't any visible signs of anything being fixed. A lot of these cars have been wrecked and get fixed and are sent back out into the world. So just keep a look at that. Also, be on the lookout for flood cars. Harvey's not that far back in our rearview mirror, and there will be plenty of Hellcats that are floating around out there that got swamped. So stay the hell away from that. Pull the carpet up. Be a pest, basically. It's your money that you're spending. It's up to you to be as Sherlock Holmes with your approach as you can possibly be. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to dig around in that car, and don't be afraid to ask to put it up on a lift. Make sure that everything that you're seeing lines up with what you're being told. Let's see. Robbie Kaiser asks, Brian, how much horsepower can my Hellcat axis hold up to? So what he's asking is the half shafts on the Hellcats. What can they hold? How much power can they hold? Well, that all depends. Just like everything, right? But no, realistically, those actually can hold a lot of power. They can hold a whole lot of power if you never take it to a drag strip or put it on a real sticky tire. But I would say somewhere around, if you've got a combination that's making about 750 horsepower and above to the rear wheels, I would say it's probably a good idea to start looking at half shafts at that point. G-Force makes a set of half shafts that are, well, they have a lifetime warranty. So you blow one of their half shafts up, they'll be more than happy to give you a new set. But they're not going to cover labor. So just know that coming into it. But that's probably the direction I would go and the parameter that I would set. Now, that being said, you get that thing into wheel hop, that will drastically reduce the lifespan of those axles. And no matter how strong or what kind of warranty that's offered, again, just understand that if you do frag an axle, you're not going to get labor paid for. You're just going to get that axle replaced by G-Force. So keep that in mind. But keep it out of wheel hop. Keep it on the street. Those axles will handle anything because you're just going to basically turn a set of tires into tire smoke. But if you are taking the thing to the drag strip, just be mindful of it. And keep an eye on the boots. Make sure you haven't spun a boot or anything like that. If you have, get those axles out of there. Get you a good set of aftermarket from G-Force is who I'd recommend. Man, you'll be fine. Be rocking and rolling. Ben Martin, man, I appreciate it. Bone Throne, thank you very much. Project Revlon gets a little bit closer. Speaking of half shafts, that will probably be my next mod. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Let's see. Mark R says, letting us know that low mileage used dealer prices look around the high 40s price range in his area now for M6 and A8, about the same. Yeah. Typically you can talk the manual cars down a little bit more, but low mileage cars, say a 15 with 20,000 or less, in this area, anywhere from, depending on options and everything else, will go from you know, 50s to high 40s. I mean, it's about right. Good thing about Hellcats though is that, you know, they're going to hold their value for a long time because it's a Hellcat. So everybody wants one of those. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Joe T says he's about to pick my brain. All right, I like it. So the Rams and Chrysler 300s have the 8 speeds with the electric shift knob, or the electric knob shifter. Yeah, that's fun to get used to, isn't it? For the longest time, I was turning my radio up and down whenever I'd go to put my truck in park. Said, could you build those to handle big power like Hellcats? Technically, yes, you can. But it does come at a cost, and that cost is shift firmness and shift quality. There's just not a whole lot that you can get away from when you're building one of those transmissions. You can't, you kind of can't have your cake and eat it too. There is some things you can do with the trans tuning that will help extend their life a little bit, even in larger power situations. But unless you go in with better clutches, bands, things like that, I can tell you that Southern Hot Rod puts together a really nice HP70, but it does require some tuning to get that drivability back. It is a very aggressive shifting transmission, but it will hold the power. Let's see. Shrod Nelson says, wow, where would it be? Manifold, most likely. What are we talking about? Oh, the leak. Oh, yeah, the leak. And then he says, yes, it has Cook's long tube headers and green high flow cats. So, yeah, check 2 areas right there. Check where the cat pipe bolts up to the actual header itself right there at the flange. And then check where, well, check there first. That's going to be mainly where it's going to leak. And then also check to make sure that the O2s are actually screwed into the cats. So what can happen in that situation is a lot of times guys will get them on there and they'll just not torque the O2s down enough. If you find that they're a little bit loose, take them off, put anti-seize on them, lithium grease in this case, and then put them back on the car. Just use a little tiny bit. Don't get that lithium on the actual O2 sensor. That way you can get them off if you ever have to remove them, but that's where you want to look. Let's see. Mopar no car. Why didn't I buy a Charger? Actually, I like Chargers a lot. I just always like the Challenger. Toby Rama says, is Mopar going to release something like the Ram TRX concept anytime soon? Says he can't wait to see a Ram compete with the Raptor. Yes, actually, the internal documents at Dodge right now are showing the TRX with the 6.2 liter supercharged engine as being, I believe it's available mid 2019, early 2020 from what I'm hearing. But that could be some BS too. But I actually saw the papers, so it's at least that much legit. Let's see. Mopar no car checking out, saying I'm out. Have a good night. Peace. Peace to you, brother. So, anyway, so what I was talking about in the beginning of the live show was one of the things that is so difficult sometimes for me to do is when I'm putting together one of the videos that's been impossible for me to put together for some reason. I just keep like getting scattered, brained. Was the comparison between my 392 and my Hellcat. And it's almost like there's this weird dichotomy there. Part of me just wants to go running back to my 392, and for a lot of different reasons. Not to say that I'm running away from the Hellcat or that I've got anything against the Hellcat. It's just, that sense of familiarity that I had with the 392, I'm very biased towards it. And the pros and cons and all of that, one versus another, it's difficult really to pinpoint, but to me, in a lot of ways, that 392, whether it's in a Challenger or a Charger, it always seems to, I don't know, be a bit more of an endearing package. And so when I was trying to put that video together, and one of the reasons why I haven't been able to release it is, you know, what I'll do is I'll typically put together a video, and if I feel good about it, I'll just upload it. Well, I don't, you know, there is no editing. I mean, the whole idea, the whole reason why I do the channel the way I do is just like you are hanging out with me in the lounge here. So, you know, what you see is what you get. I don't try to go in and sugarcoat it, or, you know, see videos where they're talking and it stops and then they start making another point. This is all uncut, unfiltered B Mason, straight from the tap. So, you know, anyway, I went back and I watched that video because it just didn't feel like it was flowing too well. And good God, it was unwatchable. So I ended up deleting it. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can actually put something together that makes sense. Let's see. Tubby Rum is asking, why is Mopar going with the puck shifters over the old shifters? It's just a space thing. That's all. Plus, it's something different. Sherrod Nelson, hey, I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much. Let's see. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's see, what do we got here? Well, I appreciate that very much. Sherrod says, trying to send me $5, but it didn't do it, so I had to send $3. Man, I appreciate it. I really do. I mean, every bit helps me a ton, and definitely keeps me motivated, and it keeps Project Revlon rolling. So thank you so much. Donald Powers, hey, Mason, what's happening? Or it says, hi, Mason. I'm saying, hey, what's happening? Damn, it is the Insomniac edition tonight, isn't it? You know, I found it's funny though, give you guys like an update on the channel. It's funny now that the 392 is gone, and, you know, we're talking about the Hellcat. It's interesting to me, like as a YouTube creator guy, you know, we don't really do this, you know, because we're trying to get rich off of it. I mean, we're all, most of us anyway, are just part of the community, and, you know, guys have been doing this stuff for a while and want to, you know, give back to the community. It's weird though, because since I got the Hellcat, I've actually been hemorrhaging subscribers at one point. I was going, what the hell is this crap? So no, I'm not a traitor. I don't know. You almost get to wondering if that was the case, but anyway, that was kind of weird to see, is a small exodus after the 392 went away. It's like I would forget how 392s work if I got something different. Yeah, the 392 is gone, Crane Man. But like I say, you know, it's you know, time for, you know, a different chapter. And like I say, it's not like I've forgotten how to make 392s work. It's just that, you know, the reality is that I felt like the 392 had come and about as far as it was going to go for what I had in mind for it. There was, at one point it was going to get a cam, and that basically, you know, kind of fell by the wayside a little bit. And just for reasons, basically my Hellcat showed up, and it was the exact car that I would have ordered in the exact year that I wanted. And, you know, it was just a kind of a perfect storm there. So I was able to get the car that I always wanted, and actually be able to get it at a price that I can actually afford too. See, Cranman's asking, what do I think about nitrous in 392s? There's nothing wrong with nitrous oxide in a 392. You just have to make sure that you do it the right way. And the biggest misconception with nitrous oxide is that it's inexpensive. Guys, let me be the first to tell you, there is nothing inexpensive about running nitrous in any vehicle, especially a modern vehicle, because you've got to do it the right way. You need to be running a wet system. You need to have a progressive controller. All of these things are a must with modern vehicles. mainly because they're already making so much power as it sits. I mean, you figure any of these blocks are good for whether it's a 6.2 or a 6.4. When I say 6.2, I'm talking about, you know, a LS based anything. And even the Coyote, I mean, they're all good to, you know, say 600 horsepower at the flywheel. Realistically, I mean, yeah, some will handle more, some will handle less, but you know, you got to put a 200 shot on an engine that's already making, you know, 500 horsepower. There's a chance you're going to blow that thing sky high if you don't have it tuned right, especially considering the lightweight pistons and everything else. So progressive controller, window switch, wide open throttle switch, pressure switches, all of these things are important in putting a good nitrous system together. And that stuff costs a lot of money, and installing it the right way also can cost you a lot of money if you're not used to doing this kind of stuff on your own. So that being said, stick with about 125 shot at the most. 100 shot is the sweet spot. Car will last indefinitely, but last but not least, don't forget to put a colder range of spark plugs in that engine. Let's see, the Wolverine 34 asks, hey Mason, what is the next step for the Hellcat? Well, it's got a Wiles drive shaft that is on its way. In fact, I was kind of hoping it was going to show up today. From there, probably half shafts and possibly a 309 rear gear. Jury's still out on that, but I will say this. B. Woody makes a street intercooler for that car, basically a street heat exchanger for that car. So I am looking into that as a possible upgrade, as well as a 180 thermostat. Basically, it's all durability mods or modifications that are not going to affect the stock tune in any way and won't require any, you know, any trickery to get them to work, running stock catalytic converters the whole bit. And again, the idea is to see how far I can take a stock Hellcat in stock weight, albeit a little bit lighter with the drag pack setup on the car. But aside from that, basically a full weight Hellcat, how quick can you make it without touching anything in the engine, anything in the tune, anything, basically anywhere on the car, other than stuff that guys would normally do when they take their car to the drag strip, which is removing the floor mats and possibly removing the speaker box. But the thing only weighs like 14 pounds, so it's kind of an exercise in futility, really. Let's see. Ben Martin says, I'm getting a supercharger type sound under acceleration in the 6.1 Hemi. Loud inside the car too. Pulleys are good. Take a look at your power steering pump. Also, take a look at your alternator. Alternator bearings might be going bad. Let's see. Toby Rama says, TRX will need to have its power bumped to truly compete with the new Raptor supercharged V8 versus twin turbo V6. Let's see who will win. Let's see who will win. Mopar wins, man. Nah, the TRX, I believe, is slated to be a 585 or 595 horse version of the Hellcat setup. Basically, looking at a Hellcat engine with a camshaft that's probably going to mirror or mimic a stock 5.7 profile. Let's see. Mark Flamer asked, why is the Mopar aftermarket part so small relative to Mustangs and LS? Several reasons. First reason, LS has been around since 1997, and the Coyote has been around since 2011. Now, that's not to say that the Hemi hasn't been around for a long time either, but the Hemi wasn't offered in a performance platform until 2008 with the Challenger. And so the issue there is, you know, that platform was really good. And then about, I don't know, 7 years later, they optioned this thing with the new VVT 392. anyway, long story short, the Hemis are really good from the factory. The original non-VVT Hemis, just in terms of performance per cubic inch, were actually pretty stout. And the aftermarket didn't really have a market to pander to, because they weren't able to really make anything better than what Mopar had put on the car, at least in terms of overall performance. So they didn't do anything with it. Secondly, with the 6.4, it's really more of this, second verse, same as the first. The problem is, from an engineering standpoint, it's difficult to justify really going after the 6.4 because it's in such a heavy car. If I put an intake together and a camshaft combination, like it had basically stock heads with a cam and intake, if I were to design my own, I would want to spin that Hemi out to about, I don't know, I'd want to try to spin it to about 7,500 RPM. Well, that's probably not a good idea on that particular engine with the stock internals. So that's one issue. And then secondly, and probably more to the point, it's more market generated than anything else. I mean, the Mopar guys typically stick with stock parts just in general. I think if there were an honest to goodness effort by an aftermarket company to put together an intake system that actually worked well with the Hemi, not only with the stock cam, but with an aftermarket cam, I think people would gravitate towards it. But that's kind of a tall order, especially when you consider that the Hemi cam itself is already fairly aggressive, with the only real difference between that stock cam and a performance cam being the lobe separation angle. But aside from that, I mean, it's got a ridiculously wide lobe separation angle of like 121 degrees. By the way, a typical, performance lobe separation angle is going to look like anywhere from 112 to 114, maybe 115. Yeah, that's a big difference between the two. So, but that cam works, and it's VVT. There's a lot of reasons why there's not that much of an aftermarket support system for that car or for that platform. But I will say this: Mopar does support the 5.7s a lot more than they support the 6.4. So kind of take that for what it's worth. The 6.4 is about as far as you can take that block and that engine combination without sacrificing either drivability or warrantability. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. There are some companies that are developing some new intake designs, but LOD is one of them. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. Hopefully in the next, say, 9 months to a year. Zendalis says, just got a 16 Scat pack, put 275 Nitto Tri 5Rs on stock wheels and a taser. What other mods would I suggest? Well, you've pretty much got yourself the generic Mopar starter kit with the 275 drag radials. I would probably suggest Hellcat airbox, Hellcat filter. That's always in the snorkel to go along with it. That's always a good first mod for those cars. And then from there, you can get into tuning. It'll definitely wake the car up as an overall driving experience. But, in terms of outright power, it's an NA car, so you're not going to pick up a ton, but you will see benefits on the street and on the drag strip, not only with throttle response, but with more aggressive shifting if you do get the transmission tuned. And, again, my car ran mid-11s like clockwork, and yours can too if you just go that route. I would say don't get too concerned with parts manufacturers that will have you believe something that just doesn't hold any water. A cat delete maybe for consistency, but don't do it for power. Cold air intakes, don't try to go after those for power either. It's already been proven I've proven myself by spending a ton of money on intakes and testing every one of them that both on the track and on the dyno, there's just on the NA stuff, don't worry about it. You know, ported intake manifold and a Fastman throttle body, probably a good way to go. You'll always hear me saying good things about Fastman's ported throttle bodies because they work. They are sweet to look at. Just in the case that it's a stock body, you look in there and it's a straight through ported unit, as opposed to the MMX thing where they just port the housing or something. Anyway, Fastman's a true through ported unit. That'll help you with throttle response and pick up a little bit extra power too. So, but that in conjunction with a ported intake manifold will help as well. Pick up some pretty decent power numbers. Let's see. Robbie Kaiser asked, will a 10 over bore weaken the, hang on, I've got the block on a Hellcat significantly? No, heck no, won't hurt anything. As a matter of fact, we recommend at Pikes to go 10 over on everything just to make sure you have consistent bores in each cylinder. So yeah, absolutely. 10 over. Don't worry about it one bit. Scat 426. What's up, man? How you doing? Grandman says, thanks. I say you're very welcome. But at any rate, you know, it's weird getting back to the whole, you know, putting videos together and stuff like that, that I literally cannot put a video together that really compares and contrasts my 392 with the Hellcat. So I am working on that one. I just, for some reason, I keep getting scatterbrained whenever I would try to put one of those together. Let's see. Toby Rama says, or asks, why did Mopar not go with the Hellcat Hemi and the TRX as they did for the Tricock? It can't be about towing because the Jeep is stout tow rig. As for the weight, they're both about the same. Who knows? I have no idea. That's a good question. And it's not to say that they won't. I just can't answer that question. I have no idea why they wouldn't go full power with it, but who's to say they won't? I mean, that's just from what I've seen, they were showing a lower power rating for it. And again, I can only assume that would come with that cam, but I don't know, it might be for fuel economy, although that really doesn't make sense because my Hellcat actually gets great fuel economy. Robbie Kaiser says he's going forged and getting a cam next week. I like it. With the bore. Good deal. Let's see. Scat 426. Are the front Demon lightweight wheels any lighter than race stars of the same size? No, they're all about the same. Actually, I take that back. Anything is lighter than the race stars, but no, they're all about the same. Cranman asks, do I ever think the NA 426 will ever meet the Challengers and Chargers? I wouldn't hold your breath, man. I really wouldn't. That's a warrantability issue that I don't think Mopar is really gonna want to embrace. But you know what? I've been wrong before, and I'll tell you guys something. I would love to see. Damn, this thing's hot as fuck. I would love to see them go with a 426 for the last model year or something along those lines, just to throw it out as a tribute. I wouldn't look at it as a long-term, you know, engine selection. I wouldn't look at it in terms of a you know, something that you will see mass produced. I think that would be like a specialty car, like a one-off thing. Colby, is it Tischler? Says, awesome home decor. I love the content. Thank you. Yes, this is the lounge. Welcome to the lounge, Colby. So this is actually a part of the house that's, you can almost think of it almost like a pool house in a way. This is kind of separated from the house a little bit, attached to my garage. This is where I do this, and I've got a workbench over there, which is freaking filthy. I'm not even going to show you that because it looks like a friggin' hobbit lives over there. But anyway, do other projects on the workbench back over here. There. So, but, you know, and it's fun to talk about, though. You know, Toby Ramos asking about that TRX. It's a lot of fun to talk about and think about, because you've got, let me think, you know, you've had the Lightning in the past. You've had, obviously, the Raptor. You know, Chevy had the SS. You know, it's the trucks thing is always fun because it's something that is different. You know, it does represent a different side of the hobby and the lifestyle when we're talking about outright performance. And so, you know, the Raptors just owned it for so long. And, you know, when Ford decided that they weren't going to build another Lightning and decided to go the Raptor route, you know, a lot of guys were just kind of bummed out about it. But, man, I got to tell you, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Also, too, remember that you know, it had a unique engine with the 6.2, and, you know, it was just such a great truck, and nobody really had anything that was going to compete with it. And now that, you know, FCA is looking like they're going to step it up a little bit with that TRX, which is, if you guys don't know, the TRX is basically a Ram Rebel with a rumored to be, but it's a pretty solid rumor, Hellcat engine. And of course, FCA is Hellcatting the world right now, so it's no surprise they would finally get around to putting that engine in a truck. But why they won't put a 6.4 SRT powered 6.4, SRT built 6.4 in a truck is beyond me, but I don't know. Drives me nuts. Zendala says, helmet recommendations. Well, Suomi, for starters, that's that one right there. Right there. Suomi, that is a Suomi Flowers in gold, and I actually need to get new innards for it. But Suomi, they're going to be tight from the factory. You almost have to sleep in them overnight to get them to fit your head. But Suomi and Arai are my two favorites. Those are the ones that I would go with. HJC makes a good helmet too. They typically run a little bit big, but HJC is a good one. Let's see. And of course, Bell. Bell actually makes a nice helmet too. So I would say Suomi, in order, I would say Suomi number one, Arai, Bell, and then HJC. It's a good budget-minded helmet. Hey, at least you're asking about helmets, so that means you're going to be wearing one. Going down the track in these cars, you definitely need to be wearing a helmet. See, Scat 426 is saying, HHP ported their Hellcat supercharger. Do I see a big improvement by porting it? Crap. Not really the Hellcat. Some housings need it more than others. It's just like intake manifolds. Some castings are better than others, but, you know, for the most part, not really. Now, if you're going to go pulling the thing to the sky, trying to turn that thing like hell, then yeah, it will help you a little bit. But, you know, if you start getting above, you know, if you're at like a 10% lower and a 275 upper, you're already on E85, or you should be at that point. Maybe with a 265 upper, it might help you a little bit, but the reality is I've seen a little bit of a gain. Just a little bit. I don't know if a little bit of a gain is worth a lot of money to port a blower. Let's see. Coley Tischler asked, what kind of transmission tune would I recommend for a 2012 Dodge Charger RT? Probably want to bump the shift points up just a little bit. I would say go up by about 2% on the big end on the shift points. I would also probably quicken them up a little, just a little bit, maybe bump line pressure up by, I would say bump line pressure up by about 8 to 10% on the 1 and 2, and then 3, 4, and 5. 4 to 5 I wouldn't do anything with. You don't need to be going wide open to 5th anyway. Bump line pressures up maybe 5% for the other ones to start, and see how you like that. Let's see. Toby Rama says, I admit it, I wish the big engine rear-wheel drive only sport truck would return to us who want high-performance trucks without having to pay for four-wheel drive. I'll tell you what, you've kind of got your wish here granted. I cannot remember. You'd have to Google it. I think it's like New Lightning or something along those lines. Anyway, there's a dealership that was putting together single cab, rear-wheel drive Ford pickup trucks with Roush superchargers, making about, I think it's 650 horsepower or something like that. Anyway, those things freaking rip. And I forget the name of the dealership, but damn, love to get my hands on one of those, man. Supercharged 5.0 in a truck. Hell yeah, with that 10-speed auto. Be a sick running truck for sure. See, Chief OGK says he is looking at buying a 2012 Camaro 1SS for 16 grand. Is that a good deal? It's a manual too. Great question. Depends on the condition of the car. I mean, how many miles, what color is it? You know, if it's some off color, somebody wrapped it crazy, it's got some funky looking rims on it. You know, obviously that price, it could be a great deal or it could be a terrible deal. It just depends on, you know, what kind of condition the car's in. I would like to see a 2012 going for a little bit less than that. I'd like to see it go for about 14, but you know, again, it's going to depend on what kind of condition the car is in and how bad you want it. It's only worth what you're willing to pay for it. Says he has 80,000 miles and it's from a dealer. No, not a good deal. Tell me you want to spend about 12 on that thing. Midwest Mopars, how's it going? What's up, man? How's the Hellcat? Hellcat's doing great. In fact, the Hellcat was averaging about 25 miles per gallon on the last road trip that it took. About 300 or so miles worth of road trip, averaging about, right at 25 miles per gallon on the highway at about 75 miles an hour. NHRA Guy 532 asks, any safe E85 tunes available yet for the 392? Yeah, there's safe 392 or safe E85 tunes available for the 392. But the flex fuel is the part that is kind of flummoxing everybody right now for a multitude of reasons, and I won't get too deep into it. There are some folks that are claiming to have it figured out. I've heard about some issues with those guys that have, you know, supposedly had it figured out. So there are some engineering challenges and some synergy, I guess you could say, problems with homologating different operating systems into the same operating system and having everything working together. And what happens is it's not quite as easy as you might think. So when you look at an operating system from the standpoint of an HP tuner's point of view, like the actual guy doing the tuning, he's got access to a lot of different parameters, but there are subsets to those parameters that we just don't have access to. And it's within those subsets that create the ability for operating systems to kind of merge together to make flex fuel technology work. And that's what they're in the process of trying to dig into, is just how to get these systems to work, because the Mopar unit doesn't use an E85 sensor. It uses other parameters to infer the octane rating, or at least in this case, the fuel type that's being used. Now, the Demon uses the NOx sensors to infer what fuel is in that car, which is great, but that doesn't necessarily work on a car that's already tuned or that has long tube headers and has the knock sensor sensitivity numbed a little bit, so it's not going into false knock all the time. So there's a lot of weird stuff that's got to get sorted out, and there's a lot of guys that are a hell of a lot smarter than I am that are working on it. So we'll see how fast they can get that stuff figured out. Toby Ram is asking, good mods from Mopars. Is that the i4s? Is it, like, which ones? I'm guessing that's what you're talking about here. pretty much anything is good. Just don't blow it up. Let's see. Midwest Mopar says, awesome. I love how the Hellcats rev on the highway with the longer gears. Man, I'll tell you what, that thing, you just set it and forget it, man. Setting that car at about 1,500 RPM at 7,500 or 75 miles an hour, and it just cruises, man. But yeah, it gets surprisingly knocks down some pretty decent fuel economy numbers, though. And it was that was averaging 25, not just, you know, getting 25 on that trip. So, but at any rate, I'll tell you what, guys, we're about an hour and a half into this. Thank y'all very much for hanging out with me. I'm gonna get some shut-eye, and I gotta wake up early as hell in the morning. But I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me this evening on the Insomniac edition. And for you guys who contributed, thank y'all so very much. I definitely appreciate it. And that's a wrap on this one. Y'all have a great one. Adios.